record it. Doesn't hurt. All right, I've started recording. Okay, 1 more minute and then we'll get started. I think the agenda is pretty clear that Amber sent out. It's mainly related to production and logistics. And please interrupt me if you guys have any questions. The main purpose is to be more of interactive and ask questions. Most of our training are just reading materials currently. We skim it and we may not understand some questions. And this particular training is focused on production to have more clarity and give better explanations related to our production process. All right, let's me get started. So we'll review these 4 SOPs. The first SOP, production control. I have some slides, so I'll go through it and we'll go back and forth with an example with the geodesic headweb process. The rest 3, we'll go through the PDF itself. And I just put this together. Who is the main audience for this training? It's mainly engineering, production, quality, and logistics. The key people who needs to understand this process and procedures. And the second tier is important for customer support, mainly focused for repairs and RMAs, as well as installation at customer site. So that's why there's second tier as well as accounting. And not very important, I think, to be aware of our production process is sales and marketing. So this is how this training is targeted for. All right, so first SOP, production control. Production control, this SOP covers a lot of details. I think it's like about 20 pages or something. It deals from end to end of mainly the process, how to be controlled, etc. And with respect to quality as well. There are a lot of details inside. The key points I'll cover here. First, I want to start with the differentiation of these three-letter word acronym: DHF, DMR, and DHR. Everyone needs to understand these 3 words. DHF stands for device history file. DMR stands for device master record. DHR stands for device history record. The differentiations is DHF is the details, how we started designing, planning, and how we ended up with the final product, including testing, labeling, etc., etc. It's an ongoing process. Device master record is the final recipe of the design, where we lock the design, where all the files are ready, and this DMR I consider as the final recipe for kind of a cooking recipe. DHF is like experimentation with cooking. You can add a bunch of different things and quantity, but when we get to the final end, we arrive at a final recipe, and that's called as DMR. And DHR is each batch or each unit we produce that is recorded in DHR. the main key, as the letter D here kind of tells us D is the design, and these two, DMR and device master history record, is the device. So please get used to these words. Any questions on these three terms?
Nope, sounds good.
Good. And this kind of, I looked up online, this also helps to understand. Design history file is all this planning, designing, testing, verifying, etc. When we go to production, we need a finalized recipe, which is the device master record. And for each product we ship, it's called the device history record. And yeah, this is a continuous product life cycle stage. And DMR and DHR are a subset of the device history or design history file. Okay. And mainly we'll focus on DMR and DHR here. DMR contains all the necessary things to produce a product. So the main key things is the bills of materials, material specification list, MSL, manufacturing process flowchart, all the work instructions for assembly and testing, and this includes incoming inspection as well, and the associated forms. And at Bell, we call this manufacturing process record. So this these MPRs are for filling out each specific unit, called a part of the device history record, DHRs, as well as labeling and packaging. And the last one, which is important for customer support, is how do we install and service the product at the customer site. So these are the main things inside this DMR. And this is an index basically that refers different documents in the device design history file. So example, I pulled out the DMR index of the geodesic headwear project. So this is an example that is via approved. So so this again, I said this is the recipe where what are the documents that we need to have to produce this product. This contains the revision number of all these work instructions, user manual, etc. And when we get to customer support, we will also include how do we install and maintain. If there's any work instruction, we will add this part of this section. So that covers device master record. Any questions? All right. I will move to MPR. The forms in slight detail here. A lot of people have used it. And Dana mentioned there was some confusion before within this MPR and how to use it, etc. So I'll this document is used again by engineering, production people, as well as customer support. MPRs are also used at customer sites when we have a checklist or form to complete installation of product. So the main inputs for MPRs are what do we start or where do we start in producing a product. So these inputs are basically the bills of material, and then the output is the final product assembly or testing of that particular work instructions. So when we get to an example, you will understand the inputs and outputs here. To get Okay, and then there I forgot one more thing. There's 3 different kind of versions of MPRs currently. We have a standard MPR template that is part of Bell QMS, and the one there's also called pre-filled product template. This is customized form or MPR that is pre-filled for a specific product. So whoever is working with this MPR form doesn't need to fill out each time specific things. Again, when we get to an example, we will understand this. And then once you fill out this pre-filled product template, we will have this actual filled MPR, and that is part of the device history record, DHR, for each unit. So there's 3 different versions. I just wanted to have clarity. What are the 3 different versions? Let's go through an example here. So again, with the geodesic head verb, this is an example of the manufacturing process flowchart, where in the top column you have now how each work instructions are tied together on which work instruction should occur first and which should occur second, etc. And the final one before we ship to the customer. And this helps the production team as well as the customer support team if at the end to go through this in an orderly manner. And each work instruction can have an MPR, or a bunch of different work instructions can have an MPR. For this example, for this product, each work instructions has a MPR form. And only if it passes, it goes to the next stage in the process. So let me open up an example work instructions. This is for geodesic head verb, and this is the electrode assembly manufacturing work instructions, where there are 3 sections, as I mentioned: inputs and the process, and then the outputs. And the inputs are here, what are the tools necessary, needed, as well as the parts necessary, needed to start this work instruction. Tools can be screwdrivers, soldering station, etc. And the parts are the specific parts that you, which is the output of this work instruction. And then you have the steps and pictures. Everything is, I don't want to go into the details of this work instruction, but this is the middle bulk of the content is the work instructions. And then the output is you have an assembled electrode for this work instruction. In the MPR, which is tied to this work instruction, it has this checklist. First we'll go to the inputs. The inputs, it has the same thing as here, all the parts and the required quantity, except there's another column called reference, which is serial number or lot number in finishing this work instruction. And the reason behind is this is important for traceability of components of a specific unit. So in this case, we need to, whoever is assembling, they need to write what is the serial number or a batch number for this component when they start assembling, doing this work instruction, recorded in this form. And what they'll do is they'll go through this work instruction. Each has the steps. It'll record as pass or fail in this column. And in this results, you can add pictures or any other data here that is decided by the project manager. What steps are key in adding pictures? And if there is any failure that is associated or any rework, we document here for that specific unit. And then the decisions are recorded here, or the final decisions. And here's the output of this work instruction or MPR is what is the finished product following this procedure. You have the part numbers, you have the revision number. We need to assign a serial number or a batch number, and the quantities here. And then you sign it. Any questions on this work instruction and MPR tying together? Okay, sounds good. And you have similar for other work instruction as well. Every work instruction has the instructions and the MPR tied together. And this is an example here. A unit made by our contract manufacturer, BMI, for I think it's a 280 channel. So here you can see they have recorded all the serial numbers or the batch numbers here, and then of each component. And then they go to the steps here. They have this, either it's a pass or a fail for all these steps with whoever's dated and signature. And then the output is you have an assembled geodesic head web with the right part number, revision, and a serial number. And this goes in the device history record of the product. So that covers kind of basically the MPR and DHR versions. Anything else, or any questions or comments here? All right. And then there is in the SOP, it also covers about labeling and packaging. Every unit that we assemble and we ship needs to have a correct labels to identify from different angles. That is the only identification we'll be having. So it is FDA put a lot of interest in labeling. So we have to properly label each unit, whether it is head web, bell lamp, flow, sorcerer, etc., which including the product number as well as the serial number for each unit. And these labels are approved and reviewed and part of the device design history file. So it also discusses that in the SOP. Packaging, we don't have any special product packaging, but in the SOP, it just covers what is, we just have to make sure there's no contaminants, or we package well during shipping. That's what it is discussed in the SOP. And then finally, in this SOP, it also discusses the production equipments. So we need to document all the production tools on equipments. We have a log for it. and we have a calibration log. George is responsible for our maintaining calibration of our units. Um, this includes multimeters, scope, etc. And whatever we use in our clinical production, we need to make sure everything is calibrated within the time. So it discusses that. And also, this is kind of new in the few months, is I also wanted to put this in screenshots. We have two variations of our products, research and clinical. We have no products yet that is cleared clinical. But if you ever build units for internally or customers, we will put it in this location of all the device history records for each unit. And if it is a research product that we will be selling to customers, there is a folder called research products, and that goes into and that will have other products like Bellam, Sorcerer, etc. as well in this folder. So this location, the research product, is not audited by anyone. So that's why Dana separated this folder, which is the clinical folder. So there is a differentiation here. Everyone should be aware of. And then I also forgot to mention device history index. This is like a summary of all the MPRs tied together, and this is the final document that is signed off before we ship to a customer. And this document contains similar things like for product identification, serial number, finished product number, and all the assembly and testing document. And this document is signed by 4 people. One is customer support representative, production manager, quality control, and project manager. For each unit, everyone needs to sign in this. All right. And then if there are no more questions, I'll move to this process validation procedure with an example of the headweb. Again, this was also, Dana mentioned that there was confusion in this validation. Any other questions before I go into that procedure? All right. I will move to the process validation with an example of the geodesic headweb. So we have a process validation plan template or document for each product. The main thing for process validation is whether our manufacturing process end to end is working. Whether the, for example, the assembly work instruction for Bellamp is working correctly, or flow or headweb is working correctly. So this is kind of validation. So if there's any errors or anything we can improve, we document in this during validation testing, and then feedback into the work instructions or other processes, and that will improve our manufacturing process. So for geodesic headweb, we have this plan is located in the device design history file. The inputs for this process verification is basically all the documents that are necessary for starting a production run. So what work instructions are needed, and what pre-fill templates are needed, and what revision. So these are all approved first before we start process validation. So let's assume these work instructions are approved, this plan is approved, then the manufacturing engineer will start doing the process validation. And how it's recorded for a particular work instruction is we have the green section here highlighted. This kind of documents whether we everything passed, if it has passed or failed, how we can improve this each step, and each step can be approved or not approved, the recommendations by the project manager. So in this work instruction, this is a 280 channel head verb incoming inspection at Bell. And in these columns, it is all approved. And this is the while building a unit, who were verified this process had recommendations for each step. So step 1 is good enough as it is. So they mentioned it as passed, no recommendations. Step 2, it's passed, but it said to have a additional step. It can be improved, and that's the recommendation. So I don't want to go to the details of all this, but so this green section entails how each step is verified in building an actual unit. And then once this final thing is whether we need a re-verification of all the steps. If it is yes, then we need to repeat the whole process after approving the next revision of the work instruction. If it's only minor edits and changes, then we don't need re-verification. So we'll probably say no, and then that will be our decision, and we'll sign and complete this process verification report. So in this way, our manufacturing process and procedures are validated, and we can start shipping to our customers, and we are ready from a regulatory perspective. So let's say we don't need a re-verification, which is more likely. For each product, we probably need only once of verification of manufacturing. Once that is done, we will remove this section, the green section itself, and we'll start manufacturing according to this approved work instruction in the next revision. Any questions on this process verification? All right, take that as a no. So that covers the entire production control process, SOP. This is a detailed SOP. So feel free to go into the document as a reference whenever you guys want it to be. I will move to the next SOP called product identification. I didn't put any slides for this. I'll just cover. Can everyone see the sentences here clearly, or should I zoom in?
I can see them quite well.
Okay.
It's pretty clear. Yeah, zoom in a little more.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
All right. So related to the main production control process is called the product identification. This talks about how we do part numbering and serial numbering of each product and component inside the bills of materials. Um, First, with respect to part numbers, we have a unique part number for each component and an assembly. Um, for example, flow, we'll have a flow software part number, we'll have a flow server part number. And so that's the 10-digit part number. Whether we need a revision or not, the extra 2 digits, that depends on whether it is Bell's design or if it is not a Bell's design, if it is off the shelf. It's only the first 10-digit if it is off the shelf products like screws, etc., or servers, which is off the shelf. But if it is designed by Bell, then we have to include a revision for that product. So we track if there is any changes, we track the revisions in the 2-digit numbers. And that's what this all these letters or alpha numeric characters have here. And we have some kind of identifications of the part numbering scheme, which is listed in the part numbering scheme work instruction. The current revision is Rev B. This is approved so we can easily identify based on a few characters in the part numbers. So for example, 8, if the product number starts with an 8 or a 9, it's usually a final product assembly. And a 9 is mainly for a customer facing or a sales kit part number. And a service, for example, has a category code of 3. And there are sub digits that are also can be classified, and not very relevant for everyone, but it's good to have that we have this document. If you want to look up, if you want to learn, you can go ahead. This is mainly for whoever is creating part numbers, as well as logistics and sales people. All right, so that is the product number. Serial number. Serial number is like device history record. So each unit assembly contains a serial number. So to track every unit that we ship to a customer, the serial number is 8 characters, and this is comes from the project manager with consultations with other members of the team: sales, marketing, customer support, and engineering. So the first 3 digits or characters are product code. For head verb, geodesic head verb is GHW. For Bell amp, it is AMP amp, etc. And the rest of the 5 characters are starting from 4 zeros and a 1 up to 100,000 or 99999, if I'm right. And this is also important for customer support. That's what it says, to trace the serial number for repairs, etc. And the associated documents are here. Any questions on this product identification procedure? Okay, there's none. I will move to the next SOP. The next two SOPs are very important for mainly logistics team. The first SOP is receiving, inspection, and stocking of materials. This SOP talks about how we receive items in logistics and put it on our stock room, and where to put it if something fails, RMAs, etc. So here's the kind of the flow chart. You guys may not see this completely. Let's just zoom in a little more. What logistics does is once there's a purchase order done and the package is shipped from the vendor, they verify the packing slip against the purchase order done. They just make sure the quantity is right, etc. And then it's documented in the ERP system. If it needs testing, which is again comes from the bills of materials, if a component needs testing like a PCB, then it has to go through a testing procedure and documented in the MPR, and it goes into the stock room. If there's no testing, it directly goes into the stock room in the appropriate bin location. And if it fails, if it needs testing and it fails, we will have a red sticker added to the component, and we will put it in the quarantine area. And we'll have a non-conformance report for that particular component, and it will be notified to the production and the quality manager to be taken to the next steps. If it is passes, we'll put a green sticker and put it in the stock room. If these are some R&D, not part of production or regular selling things, it will directly go to the requester, whoever does the PO. For example, we might buy a laptop. R&D team can buy a laptop for just exploring things. It doesn't go in the stock room. It can directly go to the whoever requested the component. That's basically it on this receiving SOP. Any questions? Okay, go to the next one. Next one is the handling, storage, distribution, and installation. This is again more detail of the previous SOP of receiving. It talks about how we organize the stock room. It has a plan. This is a draft. This is not the current one, I think, but it's just a rough draft of the floor plan. This talks about how we do the stocking in our stock room. So we currently have a bin location with the alphanumeric character. Start with A and then a 3-digit number, 1 to it starts from 1 and upward. And each bin has this bell part number, part description, supplier part number. That's how we track in our stock room. And the same thing, it's recorded in ERP. And who is allowed in the stock room is restricted. Only the production manager, logistics, and the CTO has the key for the stock room, and it's always locked. If someone needs an urgent, then the backup key is both in production managers and CTO's office in case of any emergency.
But they should come with a coffee.
That depends on who wants to bribe. good. We perform, or we schedule to perform audit every 3 months in the logistics in a room or stock room. What else? And there's talks about R&D engineering items. This goes into our R&D stock room, and this may not have a Bell associated part number because this is nothing ready for production or sales. It doesn't have to be controlled by regulatory agency. So that's how it covers R&D. Non-conformance, this just talks refers to this non-conformance SOP. If something is damaged, etc., we have a procedure for how to document these. 636 and 637, 638 sections are important for customer support people. It talks about RMAs, and installations, and shipping. There's nothing specific that I have to cover here. Yeah, as I mentioned, when you do installation, when customer support does installation, it is also part of device history record, DHR, and use this MPR form to fill out how a unit was installed, and if there's any failure or if it passes, that goes into the record as well. And there are some associated forms along with this SOP. IDRs, interdepartment requisition. This form is used when you request some component between departments from stockroom. So if sales needs a Bell lamp, for example, for marketing purpose, they would do an IDR form. If engineering wants to explore the server for flow, they will request an IDR form from stockroom, and then that goes to whoever is requesting. Inventory transfer location form. This form is used when you transfer parts from one location to another. This mainly is used for production when we transfer some parts from our stockroom to a vendor. The third one is inventory adjustment. This is if there is some errors in the stockroom, then we do inventory adjustment. I think that covers all. These forms are needed only if you guys don't have NetSuite. Not everyone has a license. If you have a license, it's much easier to use NetSuite itself. The procedure may be done or close to being done. So to avoid another step, we can directly enter in NetSuite itself. All right. I did a marathon.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on that part, which part will be available to do in NetSuite? Is it the IDR portion? Which form would be substituted with a separate work instruction in NetSuite?
I will have to get back to you on that exactly. There
Yeah,
are some
okay,
things
no
we
worries.
do with NetSuite. To avoid duplication, it's better to directly enter a NetSuite if you have a license. So I will come back to answer that later.
Very good.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we will end here then. This is recorded, so you guys can look at it later if you want to. And if you guys, when you go through this process with a product as an example, then you might encounter some questions. So feel free to reach out to me or Dana on this. We will try to answer your questions.
Great. Nice
Thank you,
training.
Shwara.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Shwara.
you did a really good job of compressing everything we've been working on for these weeks into an understandable 45 minutes. That was really good, really nice.
And then Ashwara, with respect to QMS training record form, how do we acknowledge that we've taken this training? So we've taken the in-person training on the QMS. Would we simply click in person and then that would be acceptable?
I believe that is accurate according to conversations I've had with Dana.
Yeah,
believe
so
so.
it might be good for everybody that is here at this meeting to go ahead and fill out your form so that you can have this updated on the QMS training log.
I just had the link here in the chat, so while you're fresh, use of the 12 minutes to enter.
Yeah.
In training topics, I highly recommend to put the document title, or the best way, let me show. I would click this and click rename and copy what exactly you trained with the revision number so that it is captured in our training records. If you don't put revision number of each SOP, then we don't know which revision that was trained to. So you can separate by commas and add it here. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a
Thank you, Shwara.
good rest of the day. Bye.
So long.
Bye. Training sure. This is the form. Is that the training? Okay.